Huh? No, you can say it. Go ahead. Say it. We're live. Just say it.
We're good.
All right. All right, you guys. Hello, hello, hello. I feel like I need like a DJ area up here. Hello, everybody. I'm going to get a sound box one of these days. So when I'm doing this, it's not just me up here clapping. I can have an audience. Okay. All right, you guys, say hey as you come in. Let us know how you're doing. If you're coming from Facebook or YouTube, I'm really excited. We are on, this is the 4th panel for domestic violence. So that says something right there to me, that we are still continuously diving into this subject. And I think this subject, along with some of the other panel subjects that are going to come up, there's so many layers to it. And in order for us to really begin healing, we need to start unpacking the layers and diving into them. Because as a woman who was on the show once said, new level, new devil. So I don't think there's like one devil for everything. We have to meet those head on. So I am really excited to bring this panel to you guys. But again, as you guys come in, say hey, let us know where you're coming from. If you catch us on the replay, #replay. And please, please, please share these episodes so that I can continue bringing more amazing panels and women to you. Because as I say, when we share stories and we bring everybody to the table to join in on the conversation, we create movement. So anyways, you guys, without further ado, I'm going to drop into my intro. I'm going to let my guests introduce themselves, and then we're going to dive into this amazing panel. So hello and welcome to the TUF Woman roundtable, you guys. I was about to say table, but roundtable. This is the table where I invite some amazing people to pull a seat up to the table and join together in creating epic conversation. At TUF Woman, I believe that all people have the power within themselves to live life authentically, free from fear, confident in who they are, and empowered to go out and live a life that sets their soul on fire. Woo! Woo! I believe that by one person showing up in their power, we give other people permission to show up in their own power, thus giving us the opportunity to rise together. And it is through this joint rising that we move ourselves and humanity forward to a more beautiful way of living and being. You guys, so pull up a seat, everybody. Get your drinks. All right. This is an over 21 show. You can be under 21 too, but if you want to drink, we don't condone underage drinking. Tune in and join us as we create epic conversation that moves and remind everyone of how truly powerful we all are within. Oh my gosh, you guys. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. All right. So you guys, as you all know, as I said before, this is the 4th panel in our domestic violence series. I feel like this is going to be one where we just keep diving into it. And as an honored host of this show, I'm really thankful for you ladies showing up first and foremost. I had this conversation with someone today. This is a very courageous place in space to show up in, because this is not an easy subject to talk about. And I was looking at statistics before we got on, and it's like somewhere around 10 million people are affected by this. So, I feel like when we show up, and I know I've said this with you ladies, and you guys have really mirrored this back, when we show up, we are allowing other people to show up as well and start figuring out a way to get themselves out of these situations or overcome the situations they've been in. So I'm so excited. I'm so excited. But without further ado, I'm going to allow my guests to introduce themselves. And first, we're going to start with you, Denise. If you will tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what is your story, because that's really where it starts. So what is your story?
Yes. So again, my name is Denise Marsh, and thank you so much, Ashley, for having me on this panel. I appreciate you so much for doing this, because this is something that needs to be talked about more, because there are so many women who are either in an abusive relationship and don't even know it, or they're in an abusive relationship and don't know how to get out of it. So, or those who have gotten out of it and feel that they can't talk about it because of shame or embarrassment or guilt. So this is amazing that you're doing something like this to have everyone share their story. So my story started off with, I was very young, and the relationship that I was in, I did not realize in the beginning it was one of manipulation, and one where I didn't realize that that was a form of abuse, whereas this person would show a lot of affection, you know, and made me feel very special. And then on the flip side would say something to put me down or make me feel like I did something wrong, even though I didn't. So it was always trying to put me in a place of guilt and shame, and me always feeling confused as to what was going on, because again, they would flip around and do something nice for me and say something wonderful to me. And that went on for a while. And then it turned into more of real emotional abuse, which looking back, I see that that's what it was, where this person would tear me down so much just to try to build me back up and make me feel that they were the only person I could rely on. And what they were doing was a form of love. And they were so good at it. It was so, so good at it that I believed it, you know. And sure, we can blame it on age. No, I don't think so. But I think it was just, he was really good at manipulation. And I hear that a lot from women too, who have abusers or ex-abusers, and how they were really good at manipulation and making you feel that you were the one in the wrong when they were the ones really doing the wrong. That emotionally abuse quickly turned to physical abuse. Once the physical abuse started, it was intense. I got out of the relationship, and that's when it really got bad. When I got out of the relationship, I had restraining orders. That did nothing. This person did not care about restraining orders. I was stalked all the time. I was fearful of my life every single day because I knew at any given moment this person can pop up. And I didn't like to go anywhere alone because it could have been where I could be somewhere by myself and he could pop up and I didn't know what he would do. So this went on for so many, many, many years. There were times when I came out to my car and either my window was smashed or BITCH was carved on the side of my car in big letters. I mean, there were so many things that happened. And again, this was after the relationship ended. So it went on for so many years. It took a while for me to get to a place where I did not fear him any longer. And that was something I had to do on my own as far as healing and do on my own as far as recognizing I needed to do that and getting the help to help me get through that. So thankfully, I was able to get the help that I needed to heal from that and to get to a point where I am no longer afraid of him or any person.
Amen. Okay. And Kia, I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you. You finally made it.
All right. So what I'm going to do now, you guys, I know we're on the live show here, but when we're not talking, I'm just going to have us mute our mics, whomever's not talking, just because there's a sound distortion. I noticed it when you came on with Denise. So I just want to make sure that everybody who's talking gets an opportunity. And just for anybody out there who's running these kinds of shows, sometimes that happens. So just have everybody mute their mics. It works. All right. Okay. So Kia, I'm so happy to have you here. What we're doing is just sharing our stories. So Sarah is going to go next. And then I'm going to have you pop in, tell a little bit about yourself and your story. And then we're going to dive into these topics in regards to the panel. So without further ado, I'm going to mute everybody else. And then Sarah, if you want to tell a little bit about your story.
Well, again, I echo what Denise said. Thank you so much for having us. We are all very similar in our understanding and in our passion that the more women who talk about these things, the better it's just going to be for all of us. And so kudos to the women who are on here as well. It's so nice to meet you guys, and I'm honored to be sitting here with you. So I'm going to give a little bit more information about my childhood background, because I think that's really going to help set the stage for the rest of the panel and some of the questions I know that we're going to go over. So I am actually an adopted child. I am the product of rape, and I was adopted into a Christian cult. And had I not been adopted into that family, it would have been around the same kind of a situation growing up for me. So just interesting stuff all around. I'm also a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. And so that absolutely played into, the start of trauma patterns and trauma bonds. And when I was 17, I actually fell pregnant, had a miscarriage, had to get married. And then when that was not going well due to cheating, not on my part, but on his, I divorced him and I was excommunicated basically from my religion. And so that's when I found MMA. And I actually am a survivor of domestic violence by the hands of my first MMA coach. And so that made the situation pretty tricky and pretty difficult because he was the person that trained everyone at the gym, and he was the end all be all. And he was very manipulative from the get-go. But again, I had grown up in a Christian cult, and I was used to taking orders, even though I am a very independent woman. And I just usually don't take shit from anybody, but it's very ingrained. So that played a part into it as well. Over time, like things normally do, or from what I've heard from a lot of other survivors, is things start slowly and then they gradually become more intense. And one of the unique parts of my situation is that there was an MMA gym that was part of my abuse. And so while maybe he wouldn't decide to put his hands on me that day, it would be hard sparring night. And I would be put with like some of the heavyweights, and it was like head kick night. And so he would instruct them to go hard on me. And so I would end up being flash knocked out or knocked out at the gym. And then, on the way home, it would always be, well, you should have listened to me, and you should have done this, and you should have done that. So in my situation as well, he had 3 children, and I won't speak about them or anything that they went through. That's not my story to share, but also manipulation and abuse around like our dogs and our cats, and just showing me what he would do to me through others in my life. And so eventually what it came down to was that he threatened my life on many, many, many occasions, but then he threatened my parents' life. And these are my adoptive parents, like the people who gave me a life. I mean, they really saved me. And so once that abuse started going over into them, that was at that point my straw. And so it took me about 6 months to figure out how to get away from him. And once I did, I ended up packing everything in my car that I owned, and I drove myself to Michigan, where I lived in the Detroit metro area for 7 years before moving out here to Denver, where I'm finally in a very, very good marriage and situation. So that's a general synopsis of my life and part of my experience without going too deep into it right now.
I tell you, every time I hear everybody's stories, it kind of humbles you on some level, because everybody is going through something. And, it kind of makes you very grateful. Like I said, I've heard some stories where I'm just like, I'm really grateful for the life I have. And that's not negating what that person has gone through, but it's just like, man, you see things in a bit of a different light. You're like, oh my God, and so it just makes you grateful. And then it makes you realize again, like how important this kind of stuff is, like speaking up, being a voice for the voiceless. And, oh my God, it's Marissa.
I was just going to say, before we go, I have to give her a shout out. She is one of my OG girls. When I first started doing MMA, she was on my team. She knows my story. And Madi, it's good to see you. I love you.
Oh, I'm so happy. So happy to have you here, Marissa. All right. So Kia, please unmute. I'm going to unmute you, and I'm going to mute myself. And then if you will, oh, good. You got you. So if you will just tell us a little bit about yourself and give us a bit of your story. Let everybody know why you're here and why you're on this panel.
Oh, I'm here because I'm very impressed by your resume. And then when I saw that this is what you're doing, and I don't know the whole scene, but I know now why I am here. So thank you for doing this. Thank you for just everything. Okay. So my story is I'm 54 years old in this lifetime, and I was born in Northeast India, which is, China border. And for the first 12 years, I grew up okay. And then I started growing breasts. And my dad used to come into my room to fondle me at night when I was asleep. And one day, 2 day, and on the third day, I started locking my door and going to sleep. And my mom was like, "Why do you do that? Why do you shut your door when you go to sleep?" And I'm like, "Okay." And so, yeah. And then again, when I was 15, again, he tried one day, and that was it. But then there's my mom's brother too. And he did it. Like anytime we visited him, he did it. And then I stopped seeing him, looking at him, going into his room, anything. And I was between 8 and 14, so 2 or 3 times when we visited him. And my aunt and my grandma would say, "You're such a mean and selfish girl. Your uncle loves you so much, and he always asks you to come and listen to music with him or read books with him or whatever, and you won't go." And I'm like, what do they mean he loves me? So that's what I grew up with. So, and growing up in India as a lady with, attributes, as a girl with attributes, I started walking around with safety pin, and I always had a pocket knife with me. So when I'm in public transport or anything, I always had an open safety pin or an all pin or a paper pin or something. Like anyone came too close, they would get poked. So this is how I grew up. And I have always had this thing, like I know people go through this, but I didn't really know, and plus growing up in India where everyone is like, oh, so spiritual, you need something spiritual, go to an Indian guru or go to someplace. So that is how I grew up. And to cut again a long story short, when I was 26, I was hell-bent on never getting married because I saw what my mom went through in her marriage. And when I was 14, I told my mom, 14 or 15, whatever, I was still in middle school. I told my mom, you need to get a divorce. And my mom squeezed my mouth and said, that is your dad. And once I was in my middle of something and I said, and your husband, and she says, don't you dare say that. That's your dad. Have some respect. And I'm like, what's going on? These adults, don't they see? Don't they know? And yeah. So life was always like this. And so I started dressing up like, like neutral, you dress up neutral. So like an androgynous. And I always wore like size 18 clothes, although I'm so skinny, you see. So I have 3 kids, and whenever I was pregnant, nobody knew I was pregnant till I was 8.5 months into my pregnancy. Yeah. Just so you stay like that and nobody knows what's going on. So that's my life. And I have, I have a master's in nuclear physics. I have a master's in computer science, worked as a software engineer. Everything went down the toilet in 2001 when the jobs left the country, went back to school, studied to be a clinical hypnotherapist. And then I realized hypnosis was only part of the path, like you can just take a person into their subconscious. And then what do you do? Because the whole opening is your higher self, your higher consciousness. So, so I always tell people, you can only do so much from the outside because everything that has to happen from the inside. So when I came into this call, I heard Denise's story about the inner work. I'm like, oh my God, this morning I was talking on Facebook about the inner work you have to do. And Sarah, so anyone who shows up, like all transformed, because change is so easy. Change is so easy. I can put on some lavender perfume and I'll smell like lavender, but am I the lavender? No, because transformation is the inner work, and that inner work is a high price to pay. And you have to go through everything, your anger, sorrow, fear, guilt, hurt, shame, pain, doubts. And then, like you literally have to die and be reborn. It's like the rising of the phoenix, whatever you want to call it. So that's who I am. So what I do now is I'm your mirror. I'm your mother, I'm your mirror. So if you have problems with me, it's because you need to go wash your face. If you love what you see, that means you love yourself. So that's who I am. I'm an international best-selling author. I have 7 books and an 8th book, which will come out in a week or 2. And the founder of Ventura Healing Center, where I work as a clinical hypnotherapist, a trainer in neuro-linguistic programming, 10 million other qualifications, astrologer, energy medicine practitioner, fire keeper, wisdom keeper. There you go.
all the things, right? Just all the things.
Yeah.
All the things.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And this, I'll tell you before we go any further, and this wine is good. This is why I love this panel. This is, and I have to say, something to all of you ladies, like, again, props to coming on here and sharing this. This is not always an easy thing. And what's funny is, Kia, before you came on, we were talking about the topics that we wanted to discuss, and all of you have talked pretty well, and I think it's going to lead us into this nicely. And so I really wanted to talk about becoming aware of our patterns and cycles and why that is so important. And I think we can also tie childhood trauma into this. So if that's something you feel you guys want to introduce into this as well. But what I wanted to really focus on, you guys out there in the audience, was becoming aware of our patterns and cycles, because this is so integral to, this is really the difference potentially between life and death. And when I say that, I don't mean that to be macabre, but I mean that, and this could mean the difference between you staying out of these relationships and going back into these situations, which we have all been in these situations. I did these situations for 14 years of my life. You know, so when we can become aware of our patterns and cycles, we can begin recognizing those areas where we need to do our work, that inner work that all of us talk about here. So what I really want to lead into was, what was the turning point, or what were the patterns and cycles that you guys recognized? And tying it a little bit into childhood trauma, how were you able to see those patterns coming out of childhood? And Kia, you talk so well about the things that happened in your childhood. So I guess when I talk about childhood trauma, I want to phrase it or set it in the way of, how did those situations from your childhood trauma you experienced perpetuate into patterns and cycles in your adulthood that you had to become aware of? And so I'm going to start off with Sarah, if you ladies are all right with that, and then we'll go to Denise and Kia, if that's all good. Are we good? All right, cool. So yeah, Sarah, if you want to take the role with this, so understanding childhood trauma and how that played out to the patterns and cycles you perpetuated as an adult.
Yeah, so I will just, anybody who's listening, I'm going to remain a little bit anonymous for the people I'm talking about. So I'm going to be a little bit more general. I'm not going to name names or anything like that. That's just where I am currently in my journey. So I appreciate the grace to be allowed to do that. So my childhood sexual abuse happened when I was from first grade to third grade. And it was somebody in my family, a very, very close male family member. And it ended up being caught by a female member of my family. And that moment actually was a huge pivotal moment. And I had to have been about 8 years old. And so in the moment, you know, when she walked into the room and said, you know, what is going on? I felt a sense of relief. Like, it was like somebody has come to save me. I have done as much as I could do from 6 to 8 years old to stand up for myself and say, you know, I don't like this. I don't want to do this. This is not right. And I was, you know, never able to stand as strong as I wanted to, even at that age. And I had a very, very strong pull for advocating for myself, even at that young age. And so what ended up happening was, this person said to please not tell my dad. And she just said, why would I ever do that? I will never do that. And like, I'll never speak this truth to him. And like, this is a secret. And it got shoved under the rug. And so that moment was when, you know, when you feel like somebody is here to help you and to listen to you, and then that doesn't happen, trust was just obliterated in a split second. And so that really started some internal, and I don't have the right vernacular, but I just call them like my trigger patterns, to where I can feel when I am being triggered, even to this day. And now through, you know, years of therapy, I can identify those. But for the rest of my life, in my dating patterns, those started coming up very much as well. So when I was married to my first husband, the one who cheated on me and was a member of this Christian cult that I grew up in, when things started to get really bad, he also turned physical. And so he, tried to slam my arm in a refrigerator. And then at that point, that was also still my, like, you can do whatever you want to me, but you just can't hurt people that I love. And so at that point, that was my line. And so he actually pushed somebody who I call my sister. And that was it for me in that moment. So fast forward to this domestic violence relationship. And it was just that pattern over and over. And what you sometimes start to realize is that you're picking, and subconsciously, it's not like you do it on purpose, but picking somebody who is like your past abusers because you're subconsciously trying to come to a different outcome, and or it's something that you're familiar with. And for some reason, it feels comforting. Like, you know what to expect, even if you know what the outcome is. And so when I was in this domestic violence relationship, I would sit on my bed and just ask myself, like, how did I get here? And how the fuck did I get here? Because I am not this person. And I have always been independent, and I have always been outspoken, and I've always been the woman that people are like, you need to be a little bit more quiet and stop being so aggressive. You don't need to be so brash. Hey, that's just who I am. But within these, there were patterns. And so after I left and I moved to Michigan, I was engaged to a man. And it was the exact same pattern. And there was cheating, and there was abuse, and there was, trust. And so that relationship, when I was really trying at that point to break my cycles. And that was when I really just realized I can't do this alone. And it brought me to where I am now, to living in Denver. And I actually ended up being diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome. And so what we know, and I would highly recommend anybody to read the book, The Body Keeps Score, is that when we talk about trauma, and we talk about these cycles, and we go through all these things over and over and over, right? It's just adding layers and layers and layers of trauma. And eventually it will come out in some way, shape, or form. And so mine was chronic fatigue syndrome. And so I was on short-term disability at 30 years old for 3 months of my life. And so that's when I decided to go to therapy, and I embarked on EMDR therapy. And it was the one thing that really helped me step into my own power and truly start to break the cycles, and doing that true internal work that I had really neglected for a long time. So I used alcohol in my 20s. I used drugs in my 20s. I partied on purpose, anything to kind of numb what had happened in my past so that I could survive long enough to be able to have the strength to go to therapy and really, really dive deep. And so just like Kia was saying, it is not easy, and it is the hardest fucking thing I have ever done in my life. But by going through this, we're now able to sit here with each other and empathize with each other, and also see women who we love so much like join in on this conversation. So going back to the triggers now, one thing that I have identified that I do is that I have an intense amount of anger that comes out when I don't feel heard. And it's not really discriminate for, like, maybe it's a friend and they're doing it to me and my reaction will be much less. But if it's somebody, say, like, I'm so sorry, mother. If it's my mom or even my husband now, those people that are so close to me, when I don't feel heard by them, that triggers that pattern. And I call it it's my trauma loop. It's my trauma cycle. And so when you do this work, you do start to be able to dive into those and unravel them. But there was not one moment in my life where I was like, oh, that's what that is. It was a continual look inside myself, an analysis of my actions and my reactions, and then the desire to be different and to grow. And so that's kind of what my story was like, my path.
I love all of it. I love all of it. And I think it's really important because, like I said, going back to those patterns, we just have to acknowledge the red flags. And I think for me, resonating a little bit with what you talked about, Sarah, like my pattern was always wanting to fix the person. Like, oh my God, if I fix them, you know, I'll just do that, change all. But so, Denise, the same question to you. You know, how has becoming aware of any patterns and cycle you had that may have resulted from childhood trauma or just things that you saw growing up? How did those perpetuate into your life, and how did becoming aware of those help you to break free from continuing in those cycles?
Okay, so when you first asked the question, I was even thinking, I don't know how how anything from my childhood played into the relationship I was in that was abusive. But then as I'm listening to Sarah and I'm listening to these things, and you say, you know, like the experience you had when you were younger, it like that moment, that was the first moment and I'm 39 years old. That was for the first time I felt, oh my God, something did happen to me when I was a child, and I never connected the dots, never, until this very moment. And going back, thinking what happened, I was sexually abused by a family member, and I told a family member, and they didn't believe me. And so it was just, okay, I won't tell anyone else. And the sexual abuse, I didn't know that was sexual abuse. I was young. They told me, I love you. So just what you were saying, Kia, when they're saying your uncle loves you, and you're like, this is love? So it was a similar thing where they would say, I love you. This is a way of love. This is a way to show love. So hurt and pain is love, you know? So, and because I couldn't talk to anyone, I carried that with me all those years. And so when I was in that relationship, and in the beginning, it looked like love, you know, and then it turned to something that was scary. Who was I going to tell? Would anyone believe me? And when I did start to tell people, they would brush it off like, oh, he's just angry, or it's not that bad. And then when I would get the police involved, and they treated it like it wasn't a big deal, you know, and then when I would have restraining orders, that did nothing, you know. So it was as if, what's the point of me saying anything? What's the point of me telling someone if no one can help me? If no one can help me, what am I supposed to do? And so I feel that that's what kept that fear going for so many years, because I did not know what to do. Like, I really feared I was going to die every single day. Like, he was going to kill me every single day. He was going to find me and kill me, and no one can save me. So now thinking back, it's, yeah, you have that fear of no one's going to believe you. Like, and if you tell someone, they can't do anything anyway. So you live with it alone. So it just breaks my heart thinking there are so many women who are currently in a relationship where they feel no one is going to believe me. No, I'm in this all by myself, you know, because crap, that was me, you know. And it took a lot of therapy. It took therapy. It took a lot of healing. It took a lot of work to get to where I am now. But thinking back, I did not connect the dots, you know, and now I'm connecting the dots. Like, listening to you, Sarah, and listening to you, Kia, it's connecting for me now. And it's wild thinking that something from your childhood, you think like, oh, I let things go from my childhood, but you carry that stuff with you if you don't heal from it, or if you don't even know that you need to heal from it. So I wanted to share that. Like, that was just something that just popped up in my head right now as I'm listening to all of you. So thank you all for helping me see a different side of this. And I feel like I just healed even more from it. Even though I feel I've already healed from it, I feel like I've healed even more from it. And I'm seeing it like, wow, that's what happened. And I allowed, well, no, I'm not going to say I allowed that to happen. It happened because I didn't know what else to do.
Oh my gosh. Like, see, this is why I love this platform. Like, and we were talking before we got on, everybody, and how many more people need to do this. Like, for anybody out there going, should I do something like, please, like, there needs to be a whole lot of us out there. And thank you so much, Denise. Like, thank all of you, but Denise, that was really courageous, because it's hard to call things out. And I think right now we're in this point in time where everything is getting called out. And this is what needs to happen. Like, we can't heal if we don't start pulling those things out. It's like shadow work. I think that there's like not a war on light workers, but now it's coming to this thing like, why aren't we talking about the shadow side of it more, right? Why aren't we talking about the crap that doesn't look so good, raw light and love? But the reality of it is, you can't get to the, oh, Rumi actually was the one. It's like the wound is where the light gets in. You can't have the light and the love without the wound, essentially without the crack. So, yeah, I love that you brought it in so clear, Denise, because, there were things that I walked through as a child that was trauma to me. And, sometimes I want to clarify this before I go on to Kia. Childhood trauma is not always of the sexual kind. So for anybody who is out there wondering, like, well, I never went through any kind of sexual abuse, but childhood trauma could also be maybe you didn't receive love. So to you, love looks like just being treated like shit, or being talked down to, or being told that you need to be quiet and not, which is so commonly told to women, especially, like, oh, you just need to be seen and not heard, right? That is trauma in and of itself. So we oftentimes, and this is why I think this is such a very important question, we oftentimes go into our adult lives not realizing that the way we grew up is not actually necessarily the right way of doing things. So we sit there and, again, like you have all reiterated, we look at these examples of love and go, oh, well, that's love. In reality, it's not love. It's just what we saw as examples. So that's why I think this is a really important question to dive into. So Kia, I'm going to let you take the reins with this one and tell us a little bit about, obviously, about how childhood trauma played a part into the patterns and cycles, and what it was like to become aware of those patterns and cycles so that you didn't keep perpetuating them as you went along.
Mm-hmm. So thank you for being so brave and sharing those stories, because I know what it takes to finally be free, because that is part of the work I do, is to help, first of all, myself. And that is why I can take my clients through that, is understanding what's going on, then accepting. And accepting doesn't mean tolerating, because that is one thing that we do is, oh, they are just like that, and I accept them. You're not accepting them. You're tolerating them and praying every day that they should change. That is tolerance. It's different than acceptance. Yes, yes, high fives. And so acceptance is like, okay, saying, that is a dumb fuck and he's going to be a dumb fuck. Do I want to live with this dumb fuck, or do I want to move on? That's what it is. That is what acceptance is. Like, no more tolerating. Life is too short. I'm 54 years old. I do not have 54 more years to live. I may leave tomorrow morning. I want to live in love. I want to live in peace. I want to live in abundance. I want to be the voice for the voiceless. But then there's a catch to this, because I never had a mother, although I had a mother who was very protective, very vocal, just like you, Sarah. And, going out there, she was the extrovert, the physical. She goes out, she does things. She was an activist, she was an active activist. I'm a passive activist. I'm the writer. I'm like Voltaire. The pen is mightier than the sword. So I write books. I write every day, I have like books all around me, always writing, because that's my cathartic process. But then acceptance, and then comes forgiveness. And forgive me for saying this, because every religion talks about forgiveness. No one tells you how. No one tells you how to do it. And I had to go to Hawaii, 15 years ago, and learn the process of Ho'oponopono. Not like what some famous man talks and teaches and preaches about it, but it's literally going through the process, the forgiveness. And forgiveness is not to forgive you. I don't need to forgive anyone. I don't need to forgive my perpetrator or transgressors. I need to forgive myself for having held on to the pain and not taking on their karma, because sometimes we think, I don't want to forgive them. They don't deserve to be forgiven. No, you deserve to be forgiven by you. So when I forgive X, I am not helping them relieve the burden of their karma. I just free myself from the tentacles that they have in my space. So, like, if you remember the movie of Hannibal Lecter, where he asked Clarice, what is your worst fear? You know what my worst fear was? My mother will die and I'll be an orphan. And I'll tell you how I had this fear. I was 6 years old. I'm going to a Catholic school. And then they make this little boys club and little girls club. So the boys had to follow the patron saint Dominic Savio. And the girls had to follow this patron saint Laura di Vicuna. And this is the story they told us. Laura di Vicuna died for the sins of her mother. And me as a 6-year, oh my God, my mother sinned? Oh my God, I want to die for my mother's sins. Yeah. Yeah. So every night when everyone was asleep, I would still wake up, look at my mother's face, look at my sister's face, and tell them that maybe tonight I'm going to die and I'm going to take all your sins with me. So I was preparing myself my whole life to be an orphan the day my mom died. So I loved my mom and I was scared of my mom and I hated my mom. Yeah, I idolized my mom. So guess what is my meta type? What is my archetype? The mother. You know, you ladies try to fix people. I try to mother people. I'm always mothering everyone. I'm always adopting someone or the other everywhere. Because let me be your mother. Let me love you, you know? Like, that's me. Always try. And that's my pattern. You know, men, they love their mom or they hate their mom. So guess what kind of people I attract? Anyone who has mother issues. Because I'm their mother, then I'm like, Sally, why am I mothering you? When I got married, you know what my mother-in-law said to me? Oh, he's good in everything. He just smokes. No, he just drinks. Can it get him to stop drinking? And then my father-in-law says, you know, the drinking is okay. Just ask him to stop smoking. And I'm like, what is this? You parents are taking your son and giving him to me for adoption. So I have to make sure he doesn't smoke and he doesn't drink. I'm not making this up. True. So I was always mothering him, you know. We used to carry all these suitcases with everything and we go somewhere and he needs one thing and that one thing was missing. You know, this is my karma, you know. And he would say, you carry these whole suitcases and these whole tents and then you have this one thing that is needed and that's missing. And suddenly it's my fault. Why didn't you pack? You know, so things like that pattern continues. Now I am renting this room. And guess what I'm trying to do? Be the mother of my landlord and landlady. What's wrong with me? And I was talking last night to my friend and I said, I don't know. And I'm the gypsy. I'm the hermit, the gypsy, you know, the farmer, the hermit, the gypsy. I'm always like ready with my running shoes. I don't even pack my car. I don't even have a car. I just leave. I just leave everything and I walk. I'll just walk with a shirt on, you know, with someone else may be embarrassed to see me naked. I don't mind walking with I'm not a Puritan. And then she said something so powerful that you are not divine mother. When your mother was carrying you, what do you think she was feeling? I said she was feeling one thing. I hope this is a boy. And if this is a boy and I birth a boy, I will be accepted by my in-laws. I'll be accepted in my society. So 9 months she carried me with her dissatisfaction, with her anger, with all her stuff. And that is the last layer that is like lathered all over me. And that is the work of the womb, you know, where you need to peel all that layer. And today, astrologically, the sun is in Cancer, where the Cancer is a leader, is a mother, the strong mother who will fight. And the moon is in Leo, and Leo loves the drama. So I'm like, today, if I show up in a space where people have something going on in their life, I'll just wear that invisible energetic cloak around me and say nothing. And if I'm asked to say, I'll just smile. Silence speaks louder than words. And I would always say, if you don't understand my silence, you will never get my words. So just smile. What else can you do? Because these people are not my students. They are not my clients. They are not my kids. But suddenly, and it's nobody's fault, I'm taking full responsibility. I show up and I'm like, oh, I'll be your mother. I'll cook for you. I'll pick up after you. I'll clean for you. And something's lying around. I clean every day. But one thing is lying around and I'm told, Kaya, this did not get cleaned. And I'm like, I pay rent. I'm not supposed to be cleaning someone else's dishes. The mother. Yeah, that's my pattern. So I have to forgive myself for mothering everyone. And then I have to release myself from the tentacles that others, you know, are holding on to. So there you go.
Ah, I love that. And you know, it's funny you talk about the mothering archetype because that's something that came in because I don't feel that I received the mothering. That's the other part of childhood trauma for anybody who's on here. I don't feel that I received the mothering that in my mind, I visualized like that. You know, I saw different types and I just didn't feel, and I'm not saying that against my parents because I have great parents. But, you know, again, it comes back to that perception as a child. You know, we see other people's parents and go, well, why aren't mine like that? And now being a parent, I recognize that my parents were doing the best they could with what they had. Again, you know, Sarah, I think you said, or you know, between 6 and 8, I'm just doing the best I could with what I had. We are literally just doing the best we could. And Marissa says, Kia, you are amazing. Vanessa is she's doing something. I don't know. Oh, here we go. I'm a mother. Vanessa, I'm sorry. I thought it said I'm a mother. Never mind. I'm a motherfucker. Sorry. That's what I saw for a second. I'm like, stop it, Ashley. Stop it. It's all right, you guys. It's okay. All right. This is what happens when Ashley drinks 1 glass of wine, okay? 1. Then she sees the F word everywhere, okay? So, but yeah, again, it's really important, you guys, to understand childhood trauma because those are the patterns that you're going to take. Like, let's say, for example, my father worked a lot. And so when I was growing up, I did not receive the attention that I thought I expected to receive from my father. And it was not that he was intentionally not there. It's that he worked a lot to support his family. And I understand that now as an adult because I've been able to take that apart. But because that was something that I internalized as a youth, that played off in the fact that I was always constantly trying to fill a void with a man. I was always trying to fill that void with a man. And that meant that I would date out of desperation. I would take whatever looked like love, what from my understanding of love at whatever point I was at, and I would utilize that. And that would oftentimes lead me into these relationships that were abusive, and that just were not supportive of who I needed to be. So the next part, because obviously it had a lot more, but we're already almost at the end, you guys. So this is, I think is really important. So getting intentional about a way out, I would like you guys to kind of give a couple tips and tidbits on creating an exit strategy. I'd like you guys to talk a little bit because this is really important. I know that when I was creating my exit strategy, and granted, you guys have been in far more heinous situations than I have. But I know that when I was creating an exit strategy, it was really trying to figure out where was I going to go with my kids? What did that next step look like? How am I going to support them? So it was figuring out when I leave, where am I going? Because now I have 2 kids and I can't be homeless and I can't live with my ex. So it's like, where am I going when I get out? So I'm going to start with Denise first, do Kia, and then Sarah. That way we got a little bit of backwards. So Denise, if you want to kick us off, like, what did it look like to start formulating an exit strategy to remove yourself from that situation in the safest way possible?
Okay, so for me, I was not in a relationship. Like, I ended the relationship with him, but he was still abusive, finding me that way. So it was different because I know some people, they're in the relationship and they're trying to figure out how to get out. I did not tell a lot of people because I was afraid people would not believe me or they wouldn't be able to help me anyway. So my strong loving tip is to tell as many people as you can. Tell as many people as you can what is happening, and that you trust, and having somewhere to go, whether you have children or not, just having somewhere that you can go and feel safe, and knowing that you have a place where you'll feel protected. You know, so whether that's a family member, it's a friend, it's a coworker, someone that you know that, hey, this is what's going on. I may need to be with you for a little bit. I may need your assistance with something. But the more people you tell that you trust, it's better. Instead of keeping it inside thinking no one will believe you or no one will be there to help you, someone will be able to help you in some form. And if not, figure out how you can help yourself as well. So if it's a money issue, you know, whether it's you don't have the finances to move about or go anywhere, talk to someone, find a way to get something to be able to support yourself where if you don't need that person, if that's part of the issue as well. But my thing would be to confide in someone, confide in as many people as you can that you will trust, that you can trust, so that way you know you have a support system, because you are not alone. There's someone out there who can help guide you. Even if they can't give you shelter, they can at least maybe guide you to help you in your situation.
I'm talking and I'm freaking okay. So that was awesome, and yes, so Kia, you are next. Please help us out here with what you believe are some viable strategies for an exit strategy.
Yeah, it takes a lot to talk to people, and people tell me this. The story I tell myself is that I'm a shy, quiet, and introverted person, and I can explain it some other time how psychologically, if you really put me down into something, you will know that yes, that's who I am. So because there's a lot of shame in this, you made this decision, because whenever we walk into something, we have walked out of something, and people will look at you and say, like, you did this, you did this for yourself. So we have this shame. Instead of blaming the world, you start blaming yourself. And that shame, blame, and guilt are very deep emotions that keep us trapped, and repeating, going round in circles, like the hamster in the wheel, forever in motion, going nowhere. So the first thing you need to do, if you take nothing out of all the words I blabbered today, take this, make this your mantra. My faith is stronger than any fear. My faith is stronger than any fear. FAITH. Because your faith will take you wherever you go. And again, this is the nice part about growing up in India. There's a saying, when you have no one, you have God on your team. Because your creator is not here to hurt you. But we are going through the spiritual gym. We are going through this mental gym only to toughen up. So again, going back to the science, where you said the survival of the fittest, if it did not kill you, it will only make you stronger. Okay? Your shame is not helping you. Blaming someone else is not helping you. But you don't blame anyone else either, but don't blame yourself too, because that's something I have found a lot in the new age. Oh, it's my fault. It's my. No. It's your responsibility, because the moment you shift it from blame to responsibility, you take action. You take action. There's stuff in your city, in your county, on Facebook. Just go make a broadcast about it, but you have to work through your shame. And this is how you do it. That if you believe, I'm talking to the religious people, if you believe that your father is a divine father, then you are the divine child of the divine father. You're not a sinner. Because divine fathers and divine mothers don't have sinner babies. I don't know where that religion came up from. Okay? So if your father and mother are divine, you are divine too. And they don't want to hurt you. Okay? So if you are in shame, they are in shame too. So shame on them, shame on your daddy, and shame on your mommy, your God daddy and your goddess mommy. It's not your fault. Just move on. Just move on. Find someone to talk to, or just broadcast it on Facebook. I don't care. That'll be the first step. And it's always that first step that is hard. As a yoga teacher, some of the things we were told, and I know as a fact, the hardest part of yoga is getting on the mat. The hardest part about meditation is sitting on the cushion. The hardest part of working out is wearing your shoes and getting out of the house. That's the hardest part of getting started. But once you get started, it's the momentum that carries you. So do that. Faith is stronger than any fear.
I just want to say, Kia, oh no, we were talking about raw and unfiltered here, but Kia just brought the raw and she's like, no more dumb I can't. Okay, this is great, you guys. And it's just proof also that there's a way to bring some light into a dark situation. And I don't say that to make light of the dark situation, but there's always a way to bring light in there. So Sarah, I'm going to let you finish us off since we're getting to the end of it. So if you want to tell us a little bit about creating an exit strategy, because I know when we talked, that was a big thing that you talked about was exit strategy. So please.
Yeah. So I want to give my real life example of exactly what I did, just as a contrast to what these other ladies have said. And I will try and speak fast, so I apologize if you guys don't understand me. So my exit strategy took me about 6 months to execute, because he was in my life for everything. He lived with me. He was my coach. We had one car. He tried to get us down to one cell phone. And I just had no opportunity to get away from him. And so the opportunity came when I actually was at community college, Carl Sandburg College in Galesburg, Illinois. And I had a physical education class. And so for my physical education, what I could do was go do pads because I was doing MMA. And so he decided that he was going to come to school with me that day and hold pads for me. And so we walk into the gym and the front door guy says, "Hi, Sarah, how are you?" And immediately I was like, oh no, I'm in trouble, because I was not allowed to talk to any other men or any other people that he didn't know. And so as soon as we got into the area where we were doing pads, he started in on me. And all of a sudden my brain just said, this is it. This is your moment. I don't care. Like, all you need is your car keys. Just run. And so it was my fight or flight, right? And if you've ever been an MMA fighter, and I know we have a couple on here, you feel that very deep in your core, and you say, this is my moment. And so I ran out to the parking lot as fast as I could. He wasn't a person to like do public displays of violence. And so I knew I had a little window, but once he got outside, he was barreling towards me as fast as he could with my cell phone in his hand. And he was yelling and screaming, and he was saying, you know, like, if you fucking do this, I'm going to put your cell phone onto your car. And I was like, honey, small price to pay. It's just a phone. So I ran that phone over. I did not care. I went back to my apartment, and he knew every lock, every key, everything. So I had a mother-in-law suite that was above my parents' house. And so I grabbed what I needed from my apartment. I put a 2x4 in between the door and the apartment stairs, because I knew he's very predictable. And ladies, anybody listening, figure out their patterns, because they are not that smart. I cannot stress that enough. They are very predictable. They are easy to figure out. And so I knew the first thing he would do once he got to my apartment was to try and front kick the door in. And he was like 250, 300-pound guy. He could have done that. So the moment he realized he couldn't kick that door in, because he came and he did everything I thought he would do. And I was watching him from my parents' house that I grew up in. So 2 decades, I knew that house inside out. I had exit plans. I had everything I needed to do. And my parents were gone. They're actually vacationing out here in Colorado, so I knew they were safe. And so he tried every lock, he tried every window, I watched him as he circled my house 4 times until he finally gave up, because he couldn't get in, because I had blocked all the entrances. But like, I was ready. The police were ready, like on speed dial. I had my knife, like I had a knife. Like, I was very serious that like, this was my chance. And I was ready to fight. And if it didn't go well, he was going to at least know for the rest of his life that I fought back. Like, that was how life and death that situation was. And so I'll try to wrap up quickly, but I really want to stress as well, since Denise and Kia both said this, I did not have anybody that I could talk to. And so even my friend who is on this right now, who's listening, he actually went and lived with her for a little bit of time. And she had been, you know, if anybody, I would have talked to her. And so I couldn't. And so what I ended up doing was leaving and going to Michigan, where I lived, and I created a like ring of protection with my new MMA gym. And all of those guys, there was one woman on the team. All of those men were ready to stand up for me and ready to fight for me if he ever showed up, or if he ever did anything to me ever again. So I didn't have anybody in my life at that point, in that time in my life, that I could rely on. And so I only had to rely on myself. And so to go with what Kia said, of course, I still have a bit of shame that I'm working through, because I want to stand in my power. But for me, my God, like my higher power was me. And so if there's anybody out here that also just doesn't like prescribed a religion, or it's just not something you're ready to take on, your higher power is you. Like, you are all the strength and all the power and everything you need. And honey, you are way smarter than he is. And don't let him tell you that he isn't, because the moment I stood up to him and I did that, he crumbled, and he physically crumbled, and he lost his power over me. And so I know, and that's where it ended for me. And again, that not all situations are like that. And after you leave, they can get much, much worse. And that's why I moved entire states. I had to get away because he would have come after me, and eventually he would have killed me. That is exactly what he wanted to do. And he told me that many times, as well as how he would do it. So that is my 6-month exit strategy and exactly what I did to get out. So that's my story.
Oh my God, I'm here. So I was gonna say, Kia said, "Aham Brahmasmi." You can correct me on that one. I am the creator of my reality. That is awesome. And then Marissa says, "If only I knew what I know now." We can only do the best we can with what we have in the moment. So no shame, man.
No, unless
no
you say
shame.
something to her in particular, no shame, no nothing. I love you. You're incredible, and that is all that needs to be said.
All right, ladies. So this has been freaking awesome, and which I knew it was going to be. Like, y'all ladies brought it, man. Like, seriously, I'm really, really grateful for this. And for anybody that's on there, if you resonate with anything, please drop your nuggets in here. What I'm going to let these ladies do, I'm going to start with Kia, Denise, and then Sarah. I'm going to let them let you know where you can connect with them, because I highly recommend connecting with everybody on these panels that comes on. You really just never know what you're going to create from a connection. So that's my other favorite part about these panels, is just being able to connect everybody. So Kia, if you will tell everybody about how they can connect with you and what is the best place to reach you. And then Denise and Sarah, if you guys want to do the same, and then we will end this panel.
Yeah, my website is coachkeya.com, COACHKEYA.com. You can just go over there and leave me a note, whatever, or write an email to coaching@coachkeya.com.
So if you need to find me or would like to reach out, you can go on my website, which is denisemarsh.net. Denise, DeniseMarsh.net. And you can email me from my website, and you can also set up a coaching call with me as well.
I guess I'm last. So I have a small marketing agency. I specialize in helping female and women with the X, small business owners and entrepreneurs in their businesses. So I'm a digital marketing expert, and I'm pursuing my master's at University of Denver in marketing. So you guys can find me at Modern Co Marketing on Instagram, and also moderncomarketing.com. And yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure.
All right. Thank you, ladies, so much. I have to say that first and foremost. And the other reason that I want people to talk about what they do after is to just show anybody who is out there going through this that there is an after part to this. There is a silver lining. It might not look like it in the moment when we're going through it. We don't know. And one thing I'll say that has helped shift me was asking, instead of going, why am I going through this? What is the reason I'm going through this? So what's the lesson that I need to pull out of here? And there's always a lesson or a blessing, as they call it, in everything. So if you can start taking responsibility, as I think Kia said, for your life and the part you play in it, you are the creator of your reality, the creator of your destiny, but that starts with you taking responsibility for it and showing up in that space. So for anybody out there, if there's one thing I hope that you take from this, is that everything starts with you. The power, you already have it. Don't let anybody tell you that you don't. The greatest lie I think that we feed to women is that we don't have power, and that we're not powerful, and that in order for us to have power, we need somebody else. And that is, to me, the one lie I hope to see demolished in my lifetime, is that women are not powerful. when in fact we are. And in fact, I think that's why they lie to us, is because if we knew how powerful we were, ladies, like, holy shit. Can you imagine if there was 20 million of us loud people? Oh my God. We'd have a female president, y'all. Thank you. That's all I'm just gonna say right now. We would have a female president if that was the way it worked. But anyways, you guys, these shows continue to be really important. I can't express how important it is for everybody out there to share your story, to bring your voice to the table, and just to keep moving forward in whatever capacity it looks like. So I'm going to end this by saying you guys know where to find me, but I also want to take a moment because I've never been good at this. So you guys are going to see me. I really want to talk just a moment about the mastermind that I have coming up. I feel like this is such a great space too. So I'm offering a continuous ongoing mastermind. It's a weekly mastermind for women who are ready to become unfuckable, a lot like the women who come on my panel, where you're ready to just give up the bullshit, let go of the shame, and start sharing your story and just start being the powerful fucking person that you are. Because I believe all of us have the ability to be this powerful person. We just have to stop getting in our own way and stop allowing these things to happen. So for any woman who is ready to do those things, please reach out to me, DM me, drop a comment in here, and I will show you how we can make magic together. So you guys reach out to me, connect with any of these amazing ladies. And oh, look at this. Look at Kirsten and then Vanessa. I'm so excited you were on, Vanessa. I'm so excited for you ladies. So thank you guys so much. Please come back for next week's panel, and for also Thursday. I've got an amazing guest, but I am hosting my first ever Women of Color panel. I am really, really excited to host this. Denise, I don't know if you're going to be on that one, but my hope is that I will continue to facilitate these panels for all women of color, Black, brown, everybody. I think it's really important, again, going back to stories, that stories is what makes the world move forward. Stories is how we create solutions. So I'm really excited to be hosting this panel, to be allowed to be a part of this incredibly monumental conversation, and to just be, I'm very honored to be allowed to hold space for these amazing women to show up and share their stories. So thank you guys so much. I'm so excited. It's been so awesome. We will be back Thursday with another amazing woman sharing her story. Then we'll be back on the panels on Tuesday. So 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you guys. And we will see you guys next Thursday, or this Thursday. Bye, y'all.